am DJ Glowing Ice, and welcome to another episode of Deep Dives. There are Christmas movies that show up every December like clockwork. It's a Wonderful Life, A Christmas Story, Gremlins, Home Alone, and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. But for some of us, there's one Christmas movie that hits different. Not because it's profound, not because it's a masterpiece, but because it captured our childhood in a way few movies ever could. And tonight, with a little Christmas magic from our fellow Deep Dive member Supertron, we're giving you the gift of Jingle All the Way. A loud, ridiculous, satirical comedy that didn't just poke fun at the commercial chaos of Christmas, it perfectly distilled what it felt like to be a kid growing up during the superhero boom of the 80s and 90s. To understand Jingle All the Way, you have to understand the era it came from. For Gen X and older millennials, the kids of the 80s and 90s, life revolved around superheroes, sci-fi, action, cartoons, and toys. Comic shops, Saturday morning lineups, after-school reruns, action figures stacked at Toys R Us. This wasn't geek culture. This was just childhood. And toy companies? They were in open warfare. Star Wars, Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, Ninja Turtles, and later, the nuclear bomb of the 90s, Power Rangers. Every brand fought tooth and nail for that $20 to $100 Christmas budget most parents had carved out, sometimes less. Meanwhile, superheroes were surging back into the mainstream, thanks to Christopher Reeve's Superman, Tim Burton's Batman, and the legendary 90s animated series for Batman and X-Men. For the first time in decades, superheroes weren't just comic characters. They were becoming culture. And into this world stepped Arnold Schwarzenegger. To kids of the 80s and early 90s, he wasn't just a celebrity. He was practically a real-life superhero. By 1996, Arnold wasn't just an action star, he was the action star. Conan, Terminator, Predator, Commando, movies absolutely not meant for kids, which of course, meant kids loved them. And toy companies took notice. Everything Arnold touched turned into a toy line. So when he transitioned into family comedies with Twins, Kindergarten Cop, and Last Action Hero, it made perfect sense to build a Christmas movie around him. And that movie introduced a new fictional superhero, Turbo Man. Originally called Turbo Tom, Turbo Man was the brainchild of director Brian Levant, producer Chris Columbus, production designer Leslie McDonald, and character designer Tim Flatter. Turbo Man wasn't just a character. He was inspired by real-life holiday toy madness, like the Cabbage Patch craze of 1984 or the Buzz Lightyear frenzy of 1995. Kids and parents alike were caught up in the retail arms race, where getting the hottest toy could make or break a Christmas. Turbo Man distilled all of that chaos into one over-the-top superhero. He wasn't just a parody, but a Frankenstein of 80s, 90s pop culture. A bright, flashy costume like Captain Marvel or The Flash, a personality straight out of Superman and Captain America, flight and tech like Buzz Lightyear, a boomerang weapon reminiscent of Batman's Batarang, a TV show, a comic, a cereal, and of course, the toy line. He was every hero we idolized, rolled into one perfect plastic marketing machine. And that was the point. Everything about Turbo Man's world wasn't just fictional, it was familiar. It looked exactly like the toy lines, the TV shows, and comic universes we grew up with. Turbo Man's saber-toothed sidekick, Booster, was another deliberate parody. He looked like Talkie Tawna from Shazam mixed with DC's Tasmanian Devil, and nobody liked him. Because of the 80s and 90s, no kid wanted the sidekick figure. They wanted the hero. They wanted the villain. Everything else was a peg warmer. As Sinbad's character Myron said, "Booster? Who wants Booster?" As for the villain Dementor, Turbo Man's greatest antagonist, he was a blend of every classic evil genius. Lex Luthor, Brainiac, Doctor Doom, MODOK, complete with tech, ambition, and likely sorcery. His masked goons, the Demo Team, spoofed the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Marvel's AIM, serving only as a minor distraction before Turbo Man would make short work of them. In the film, Turbo Man wasn't just on screen, his presence dominated every aspect of the movie, as some of the greatest scenes in Jingle All the Way took place inside toy stores displaying real toy lines of the era. Toy Biz's Ghost Rider, X-Men Age of Apocalypse, reminders that superheroes were massive, long before the MCU made them billion-dollar brands. And to anyone who lived through the pre-online shopping era, these depictions were painfully accurate. If you wanted a toy, you went out, you searched, you hoped. These stores were temples, the aisles, battlegrounds. And during the holidays, the chaos was very real. It was survival of the fittest. Parents, grandparents, uncles, they all became soldiers in the Christmas toy war, echoing the movie's elbow-to-elbow cacophony, grappling over Turbo Man action figures and shunning his sidekick Booster like he didn't exist. The pandemonium was comedic, slapstick, but painfully relatable to anyone who had lived through the era. And where there's chaos and high demand, more unscrupulous ways to cash in always emerge. Due to high demand for toy lines, a darker market evolved. The bootleg toy scene of the 80s and 90s was the Wild West. Through the lens of Jingle All the Way, the gang of black market Santas embodied this underworld. Over the top and comical, but a perfect exaggeration of the sketchy dealings of third-party vendors. Cheap knockoffs, weird packaging, figures made in Mexico, Taiwan, Hong Kong, sometimes intentionally designed to scam clueless adults. Kids could spot the fakes instantly. Parents, desperate to appease their children, not so much. Today, collectors dominate the market, and bootlegs get spotted instantly. Back then, it was all too easy to get burned. The chaos wasn't just confined to toy stores or shady vendors. It spilled onto the streets, and in this film, into the events built around Turbo Man, the movies, the TV spots, and most memorably, the Christmas parade. Parents elbowed through the aisles, toys flew off shelves, and at the center of it all, the larger-than-life hero dominated the parade, a living embodiment of holiday madness. Inspired by the 1987 Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, where performers dressed as Marvel characters staged similar battles, the scene wasn't just a finale. It was cheesy, it was theatrical, it was exactly the kind of spectacle superhero-obsessed kids lived for. And when Howard finally made his way to the parade, he found himself caught up in the spectacle, literally becoming Turbo Man, facing a perilous battle against the villainous Dementor in an attempt to present the coveted action figure to his son. A perfect culmination of toys, commercialization, and superhero dreams. A chaotic crescendo that captured what it felt like to grow up during the 80s and 90s superhero boom. Turbo Man's presence wasn't just confined to the world of Jingle All the Way. He stepped into the real world. Tiger Electronics released a 3.5-inch Turbo Man action figure in 1996, complete with his signature accessories, the boomerang shooter and rock and roller jetpack. With only 200,000 made, it became a grail for fans who loved the movie, with sealed versions now fetching $150 to $300 online. Funko later re-released Turbo Man for a new generation of collectors, some faithful to the film, others in their signature style. True to form, a booster figure still hasn't been made. Turbo Man, created as a parody of pop culture excess, ironically became a real product of pop culture nostalgia. A toy born from satire, now immortalized as a collector's dream. At its core, Jingle All the Way wasn't just a Christmas comedy. It was a time capsule. A reflection of growing up during the golden age of Saturday morning heroes, plastic action figures, and holiday toy crazes that brought out the best and worst in people. The 1990s may have not invented toy fads, but they perfected them. From Pogs and Beanie Babies to talking Barney dolls, the decade was a non-stop carousel of collectible obsession. For those of us who lived through it, Turbo Man wasn't just a character in a movie or a plastic toy. He was our childhood dreams, our obsessions, and our chaotic, joyful memories distilled into one absurd red and yellow superhero. He captured the thrill of Saturday morning heroes, the madness of the holiday toy hunts, and the hopes we carried for our favorite heroes. As Jack Kirby once said, superheroes are our modern mythology, and Turbo Man is no exception. He was the perfect amalgam of everything that was popular with kids, introduced at just the right time. In the new millennium, things would change drastically. Online shopping would make everything far more convenient. Action figures would go on to be aimed at adult collectors, with kids moving on to increasingly immersive video games. And the MCU would forever change the general public's perception of superheroes. For these reasons, Turbo Man truly represents a moment in time. A moment when superheroes belonged to the young and the young at heart. If today's episode sparked some memories, we'd love to hear from you. What was your must-have holiday toy? Or your most epic holiday grail? And if you enjoyed this episode, we'd appreciate it if you hit subscribe and turned on notifications so you never miss another deep dive. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this look at celebrating the heroes, the chaos, and the magic of many childhoods through the lens of Turbo Man. Be sure to join us for another episode of Deep Dives, and until then, keep reading, keep exploring, and have a wonderful holiday season.